Hi. Because of the nature of our audience, I'm going to say buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Yeah, okay. Um, Maybe we'll get some other languages in there eventually. Reggie, how you doing?
Good afternoon, John. I'm doing great.
I did some graduate work, and the graduate work that I did was comparative Semitics. It turns out there's a lot of Semitic languages. Things like Ugaritic and Akkadian and fun stuff like that. And German and French, because theological languages are written in German and French. And you know, the biblical languages, Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic and so forth. But despite these 9 languages, there was one language that did not get covered. It's America's other language, right? It's a bilingual country.
Yeah.
And what language did I miss that I really need? Spanish. I can't believe that I had to memorize all those words, and Spanish was nowhere among them. But anyway,
Bueno, yo te puedo enseñar.
oh, whatever you're saying to me, Ray, that's Ray's over there babbling in Spanish. Babbling, related to the topic today. Reg, would you pray for us today?
Certainly. Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for this another opportunity to study your word together, to learn what Revelation has to teach us. We ask that you will guide us with your Holy Spirit, and not only us, but those who watch these videos in the future. And we thank you
Amen.
for doing so.
Amen. Well, we're closing in on 5,000 hits. Somebody is studying, but we need a lot more people to be studying. You all know your circle of influence and who you should be inviting. Okay. We're going back to Revelation. Here's the first slide is, by now, something you should recognize. This is the chiasm of Revelation. Oh, up above the prologue, there's the exterior title on the front of the book, and then there's the little paragraph that says what the book is about on the front page. But this is the actual divisions, and we're way down in C prime. Look at that. That's Act 6. Act 6 out of 7 acts. We're really moving along here. Revelation 17:1 is the beginning of the judgments on the whore of Babylon, as she's been known for centuries. The judgments on the wicked executed, which is parallel to C, the land unseals the book of judgments. All right, so now let's look again at C prime, Act 6, Revelation 17:1 to 20:15, the judgments on the wicked executed. The woman and the scarlet beast are under judgment. This is not the cosmic woman, but her evil counterpart, the whore of Babylon, as she's been called for ages. Then comes scene 2, the lamentations over the fall of Babylon. 3, rejoicing in heaven at the marriage supper of the Lamb. Scene 4, the word of God casts the beast and the false prophet into the lake of fire. 5, the millennial judgment by the church in heaven. 6, Satan and Gog and Magog cast into the lake of fire. And a summary, the great white throne last judgment, which is what this whole act is about. All right, so we're going to begin now with scene 1, just orienting ourselves. The whore of Babylon and the scarlet beast judgment. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute." The great prostitute just does not have any ring to it at all. The great whore of Babylon has a ring to it, right?
Yeah.
I'll show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters. That's weird. with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. Okay, that's the first two verses. By now we're used to the technique of tying one scene to the next by the use of the same symbols. Here it's one of the seven angels from chapter 8 and chapter 16, involved in introducing the scene in its venue. The sexual immorality, pornuo, that's where we get porn from, introduces an alternate kind of wine than the wine of God's wrath, the wine of her pornographic actions that makes the dwellers on earth, that is the lost, drunk. We don't know yet much about this whore, who, again, is introduced suddenly, rather casually. This is an image with more than one obvious meaning. We saw earlier that pornographic acts were a clear reference to the mixing of political and religious power to kill the righteous. It's that here again. But we also saw that this was an image of actual pornographic behavior. It is both, appropriately. Now, for the first time, this is important. Pay attention to this sentence. Now, for the first time, we are going to get two distinct symbols, one of religious power and the other of political power. They haven't been divided out before this. And we will be reintroduced to the seven-headed imperial beast and learn much more about it that we wanted to know but haven't been told until now. Okay, clear? We don't know about the prostitute or the waters that she sits on, but all will quickly become clear. And in meeting our old friend, the imperial beast, we are going to learn the disastrous outcome of mixing religious and political power for both parties over a very long period of time. And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. Normally we think of the wilderness as the realm of the demons, right? Remember, we've got this Day of Atonement thing going on in Revelation, the last act of which is to recognize the lost world and send Azazel out to the king of demons. Okay, so here he's in a wilderness. I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names. Had 7 heads and 10 horns. We've seen that before. Blasphemy is usually something that it means saying things that are entirely inappropriate about the infinite God, claiming his authority, mocking him, so forth. Alarm bells go off here. First we encounter the imperial beast, but now more than ever looking identical to the great red dragon. It's identified as having 7 heads and 10 horns, the basic identification of the dragon. The great red dragon was fire red. Remember, it was kind of an orange red, like flames. The color tying him symbolically to the lake of fire, to which he is destined. But here the beast is scarlet, more bright red, cherry red, sometimes called crimson or carmine, after the insect whose eggs supply the color. It is easy to see that Revelation intends to symbolize the beast in its intimate relationship to the whore, typical name by which she's known. In fact, we will discover that she is arrayed in purple and scarlet, color coordinated with the beast, right? Of course, they're going to be joined here in this chapter. The beast, now devoid of all the animal symbols in Daniel 7, that's not brought up, is much closer to the appearance and behavior of the dragon. They are virtual mirror images of each other. The one comes up from the abyss, the other comes down from heaven, and they meet on the earth plane. We saw that the dragon virtually creates the power of the beast, which also gives us the key to why Satan would appear as a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, which properly belong to the imperial beast, as we'll see. Right from the beginning, I said there's a reason why the devil is pictured as a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. And I have said we don't know that yet, but we'll see. Why? In tying Satan to the imperial beast so closely, we understand that Revelation is saying that the dragon is indeed Satan, but in a very particular capacity. This is important. This is Satan indeed, viewed through his activity in directing and controlling the political powers of earth. That is the main role of Satan in the Revelation. This isn't Satan working individually on you and me. This is Satan working on and through the great imperial powers that he has used to make war on God and his people. Is that clear? Everybody got that? You understand here? People in YouTube land and folks here? All right? The dragon looks the way he does because of his relationship to the imperial beast. All right. Now this beast, the imperial beast, was full of blasphemous names. Okay, that's not good. And it had 7 heads and 10 horns, just like the dragon. In Revelation, whoops, I don't know what I just did. In Revelation, we see blasphemy repeatedly. In each case, the blasphemer is defiant of God and intends to side with Satan in an attempt to overcome God. Remember, that was Satan's original idea, that he could overcome God. The blasphemer is allied directly with Satan. The names are pagan god names and often indicate a rivalry with God. The horns are still the weapons of offensive and defensive war in any animal. Here, it represents the powers of the beast, which later in the chapter devolves upon the 10 horns, reflecting the 10 horns or 10 toes in the last stage of the power of the 4 empires in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. That claimed God's authority to rule the earth. We'll look at both the original 10 horns in Daniel 7, who they were, and their counterparts in our time. In cyclic time, we understand that what was happening to the Christians in Roman Asia is happening now. They're simultaneous. How can 2 different times be the same time? Well, they can't in linear time. They are in cyclic time. The case of the 10 horns is what they were, are, both then and now. Again, the search for complete meaning in exegesis. Another unsolved question is that both the dragon and the beast are mirror images of each other, except in one glaring particular. You can tell me offhand what that is, can't you, Ray? Yeah, always over there busy pressing buttons. If you go back to chapter 12, verse 3, you will see that the gold metal crowns, called diadems, are on the 7 heads of the dragon, but crowns, also diadems, are now on all of the 10 horns, 13:1. Remember, these are not Stephanoi signaling victory, not laurel wreaths or even gold laurel wreaths, but royal crowns of the oppressive type of kingship that we see in the Roman emperors. And seeing how particular Revelation is with its imagery, there has to be a particular reason why the crowns are on the heads of the dragon and on the horns of the imperial beast. Okay? There's got to be a reason. Well, that's very minor. But what we found out is a word, a nuance, a phrase, something like that. It's intentional and it's probably not minor. All right? Of course, first things first, we need to know more about the 7 heads before we get to the crowns on the heads. Okay? All right. Does this all seem to be flowing okay, Reggie?
Oh, I'm trying to keep up.
Okay. He carried me. Here's what's going to happen. We've always seen this mix of political power and religion. But in chapter 17, something happens that doesn't happen elsewhere. Politics and religion are separated One symbol is for politics and the other symbol is for religion. Okay? The beast that she rides on, that's the political powers. The woman herself, that's the religious powers. Now they're separated out. We can look at each of the symbols separately. Okay?
It's just a lot of information coming real fast. It's like drinking out of a fire hose.
That does not present a pretty image.
No, it's good information. I'm just saying. It's.
I think that chapter 17 assumes that a lot of what has already been said you understood. Remember, Revelation is written for us, but what? But not to us. And we gather from the way Revelation is written that the people in those 7 assemblies really had been schooled in their Bible, what we call the Old Testament. And they got it. And plus, it's about their culture, right? It's about their culture, not ours. Jonah saw the cosmic woman flee into the wilderness to be sheltered from the dragon. That was in chapter 12, right? The second half of the 70th week, 3.5 years. Now he's in a wilderness again and seeing a woman again. But the change is shocking. Not at all what was expected, despite the angel informing him of what he was going to see next. When I saw her, I marveled or wondered greatly. The word wondered there is the same word as in signs and wonders. Here it represents John's shock at this woman compared to the cosmic woman. Is this the same woman? Or perhaps her opposite? This woman is corrupt, and her corruption above all else is her illicit relationship to political power. Now, she was seated on many waters, according to the angel, 17:2. But now she's seated on the wild imperial beast. Okay. So the waters and the beast must in some way be the same thing. We'll see how that works out. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls. This really reminds me of Roman goddesses, perhaps Diana, Artemis, or perhaps Roma, the symbol of the Roman Empire, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and impurities of her sexual immorality. All right, there's a key word there. In 17:4, there's a big word there. It jumps right out at you. Her golden cup was full of abominations. It's going to say more about this word in relation to her in a moment. Now, what are abominations? That's the Greek word that is used in the Septuagint for toeva, the Hebrew word that means something hated or detested, right? And we find out by looking at every single instance of it in the Bible that it is something that has to do with the practice of the pagan religions, right? If it says that a man shouldn't lie with a man as a woman is an abomination, it's telling us something, right? Why did the folks in Sodom want to rape the 2 men? Oh, because that's how you got power. There was a power structure. This was something that was done in the pagan world, okay? And it was communal rape, and then, of course, they would kill them and drink the blood. And they would become more powerful. They would get the power of those men. So that's the kind of thing that abominations describes, okay? You need to know something about the background. It's probably not what we think of. We have to go back and know a little bit about the Canaanite religion. All right, here is the whore dressed for her business, right? All right, she's got all this stuff on. She's all dolled up to make some money, which is explicitly said to be prostitution. She matches her ride. She has a cup full of abominations. Key term. This is the standard Septuagint for the Hebrew Taweva, thing detested. Regularly refers to practices in the pagan religion, which God hates. So we know that her stock and trade is paganism. How are pagan practices related to imperial power? She is, after all, seated on the beast, and apparently has control over it. But we're not done with abominations as related to the whore. Now comes a further infamous description. Oh, before we get to the description, this is what we get. Here's a painting. Do you like the painting? I don't particularly like the painting. She's got a really big golden cup. I like that. It's okay, but the color is dead wrong. It's a lot of purple. And, oh, I don't know. Can you tell this, Ray? It's probably not.
No.
It's purple with a little bit of scarlet stuff here and there. I don't know what's going on with it. It's this, compared to images of the goddess Artemis, this is way too tame. Right? You understand what I'm saying? This is way too tame. This is not what the folks in Asia would have seen in their minds. The color is the background of the beast color is right. See, there it is. That's carmine. That's made from an insect's eggs. All right? But this woman isn't voluptuous. In fact, she looks like she's got bulimia. Right? Mm-hmm. She's way too stylized there. It's not good. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery. This is important. More, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes. So she has daughters that do what her deal is. They're all prostitutes, right? That's other religions, okay? And she's the mother of prostitutes and the mother of earth's abominations. Okay, she's the mother of the pagan religions. Have we got that? This woman is the mother of the pagan religions. All righty then. There are places in the Old Testament, as in Ezekiel, where most of what was supposed to be God's people were pagans. Okay? In Ezekiel 23, we have the story of Aholah and Aholibah. That word just means tent. And it's two cities. The two cities are the capitals of the Hebrew kingdoms. One is Samaria and the other is Jerusalem. Okay? And they have become prostitutes. And that's described there in Ezekiel 23. And you think of it because this is drawn on that background, that basis. Okay? The harlot is not only a prostitute, but the mother of prostitutes. She's the big one, par excellence. But also the mother of earth's abominations. This verse tells us she is the chief communicator of paganism and pagan ideas into the imperial powers that are rolled up in the imperial beast. Okay? She's like the handmaiden of Satan. Okay? In the book of Proverbs, young men are told how they should comport themselves. Right? And there's two symbols there. There is the symbol of the wise woman. She's going to teach you how to act and be to make life successful. But you need to be warned there's someone else. There's another woman, right? She's the prostitute. And you're going to find out if you start worshiping at her altar that disaster will ensue. All
She
right?
may appear enticing, but
Yeah.
the results not so much.
Yeah, the results are going to be disaster. So this image here is the communicator of pagan ideas into the imperial powers. That is, we have here introduced a refinement of the dragon, beast, false prophet motif, right? Now, yeah, we know that religion and politics are joined in these, but now we're going to talk about them separately, okay? In chapter 17, for the first time, we're going to talk about religion here, politics over here, and what happens when we mingle them. All right? And we're going to have, as we already know, a single name for all the successive empires in the imperial beast. What are they all called? They're all Babylon. Okay. She has a name of mystery, which certainly reflects the numerous mystery cults in the Eastern Roman Empire. Revelation could not have been written in the Western Roman Empire. Do you understand? The occult religions come from the East. That's what Tacitus considers the problem with Rome and why he doesn't like Christianity. He says Rome is that foul basin, that foul sink that every kind of abomination flows into. And Christianity, as far as he's concerned, is one of those. Right? You can see his problem, right? All right, you're worshiping as a god a man who was crucified. Okay. You're going to have to explain that one, right? All right, you remember that in a mystery religion, the sect has the secret knowledge that guarantees eternal life. You cannot know the secret because you're not a member. You have to join up and become a member, and if you were a member, you would then have the secrets that guaranteed eternal life opened up to you. But you couldn't tell anybody else unless they were members of the sect. And there were competing mystery religions. In order to understand what he's saying, John needs to know the mystery. You have to tell me what the key is here that I don't get because I'm not part of her religion. All right? But the angel said to me, "Why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her." All right, that's good. The mysterious name puzzle is within the clearly stated title on her forehead. What's the forehead, right? You get the seal of God in the forehead, you get the mark of the beast in the forehead, or the hand, right? This is the top chakra. That is the spiritual one. That's where you see spiritually. You know, you understand. That's what the forehead means. Okay. All right. The mysterious name puzzle is within the clearly stated title on her forehead, the center of spiritual power. Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and earth's abominations. All right. Let's start with the beginning. The Babylon the Great. Where does it come from? The name Babylon the Great is turned up on the forehead of the whore. Hence the usual title, the Whore of Babylon. There's more bad news about this high priestess of paganism. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. All right, that's the word for wondered. Signs and wonders, same word. But the angel said to me, "Why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman," that's what he needed, "and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her." John does not initially know what the meaning is of what he's looking at. Remember, he's nonplussed. A woman in the wilderness is the cosmic woman fleeing from the dragon. This is a whole different deal here. He's puzzled, and she's impressive looking. Doesn't look like she has bulimia in his vision, right? And he needs to know, all right, now we're getting somewhere. The angel is about to explain how the woman relates to the imperial beast and what these 7 heads and 10 horns are all about. Now, this 7-head and 10-horn thing isn't new. In Daniel 7, there are 10 horns, right? Do you remember Daniel 7?
Uh-huh.
How many heads are there?
7.
7, Ray? There's
I
only
believe
4.
4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, you say 4, he says 7. Count them up. What's the first beast?
Let's see.
Remember, we're Daniel. Daniel, where does Daniel start?
Babylon,
Babylon.
lion.
Babylon. How many heads?
1.
1. Next comes Medo-Persia, the
Medo-Persia. A
the
bear.
The bear. The bear's
Raised shoulder.
raised shoulders came up last. The first is the lower shoulder is Media, the higher shoulder is Persia. How many heads?
1.
1. What comes next?
A leopard with 4 heads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
okay.
was wrong.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
wrong. Yeah, yeah. If you add those 4 to the 2 you're at 6.
Yeah.
And then we got the dragon, and that's 7.
Yeah.
So there were 7 heads and 10 horns in Daniel 7. All right. And that is part of what this is about back when we first get this beast introduced, back in chapter 13. All right. We need to know this mystery, as I said, because there's a new insight. Added information is being given about why the imperial beast kills the saints. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll take this slow. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. Well, we knew it came from the bottomless pit, right? I told you that when it came up on the sand of the sea, it wasn't coming up from the Mediterranean. Where was it coming from? It's coming from the underworld. Okay, Ray? All right. And it comes up from the bottomless pit, but it's still going to go into destruction. Now, we already know about this. The beast that was, and then came a mortal wound to one of its heads, right? The beast was, is not, and is about to rise. Okay, the mortal wound was healed, which left the masses of the lost earth awestruck. The beast rises from the bottomless, where pit must occasionally be supplied. Since a pit stood for a grave and therefore for death, the bottomless pit is a graphic, symbolic way of saying death that doesn't stop, eternal death. Well, if it's already in the bottomless pit, this is a real something to think over. It gets out of the bottomless pit and it's alive again. The amazement here is that a beast already in the bottomless pit comes back and lives again. Got it? Well, if that beast can do it, then maybe what?
Others can
Maybe
do it.
we can do it. All right, but it's only going to stay alive for a little while. The mortal wound must come to the end of the 7 heads then. We still need more information about the 7 heads. Now, do you remember this quote? This is from introducing this beast back in chapter 13. One of the imperial beast's heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. Now we come back to the imperial beast, and as advertised, we are going to get much more information than the initial outline in chapter 13. So we have no problem at all with the idea that the beast was, is not, and is about to rise. Okay. The beast, now Revelation 17, that was 13. The beast that you saw was, and is not, and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go into destruction. And the dwellers on earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life, from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was, and is not, and is to come. Okay? Look, it's alive. It gets a mortal wound. It is not. The mortal wound is healed. It is. Not a big deal. Okay? Notice the repeat of the same thing in both chapters about what it is that makes the masses of earth follow and wonder. It died. It's come to life again. Who does that remind you of? Jesus. This is a false resurrection. All right. Okay, so next. This calls for a mind with wisdom. Where have I heard that before? Anybody?
The number,
The number. What do you mean by the number?
the last verse in Revelation 13.
Yeah, oh yes. The last verse in Revelation 13. This calls for a mind with wisdom. Because then you've got to count the number of the beast because it's the number of a man. And it turns out to be 666. Okay. It would take no exegetical genius to catch that this thing here is a reference to the city of Rome. This calls for mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman is seated. What was Rome famous for? It was, yes, it's famous for its 7 hills. That's pretty transparent. Who was Babylon at the time Revelation was written? Rome.
Rome.
Okay, that's pretty obvious too. Now we already, when we did Armageddon, we found out that Har means mountain. Well, it means mountain or hill or hillock. Okay. In 2nd Isaiah, there's going to be a highway through the wilderness for God to go back to his temple. And every mountain will be brought low and every valley filled up, right? It really means every hillock and every little, what would we call it? We would call it a pothole, right? We've lived in Boston, so we know about potholes. What he would be describing is little bumps where the chariot would bump and little holes, something like a pothole. So it's not talking about something big, but it can mean something big. You have to find out by the context. One cannot miss the reference to the 7 hills of Rome, of course. There's a correlation of some sort between the 7 heads of the beast, the 7 hills of Rome itself. But we're not done with the symbolism of 7 here. I've told you repeatedly not to conclude that any specific symbol in Revelation has one and only one meaning. The next few verses will illustrate. Because it's going to tell us they are also something else. This is what they are. And the next verse says, and they are also. Well, now wait a minute. What does that mean? That means this one symbol has what? Has more than one meaning. All right. This calls for a mind with wisdom. This is the part we just read. The 7 heads and 7 hills or mountains on which the woman is seated. So that's the city of Rome. They are also, you see it here? Okay, Ray, if you got they are also, it means that we have one symbol that what? Means more than one thing. There are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen, 1 is, and the other's not yet come, so that makes 7. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. All right. Do you remember that we had the warning that the mark of the beast must be calculated by a mind with wisdom? So also here. The prophecy contains 2 distinct meanings. One references the city of Rome itself, which was surely the phase of the imperial beast when Revelation was written. In fact, what number would the city of Rome be? What? 4. Yes, and you know what? When I read Daniel, I find out that there are 4 empires, and then comes the kingdom of God. Right? Mm-hmm. You got the 4 beasts, then the Son of Man, the heavenly Son of Man, is chosen by the Ancient of Days. And I'll tell you something, a little trick that we do in Daniel 2. First there's the head of gold, then the chest and arms of silver, that's Medo-Persia. Then the belly and thighs of brass, that's Greece. And then the 2 iron legs, that's Rome. And the feet are partly iron and partly clay. And in the days of those kings, God of heaven will set up a kingdom. Same word. King and kingdom, same word. Okay, now, I see the interpretation of this, and it's Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, and then the 10 tolls. Oh, that's the German tribes that became the modern 10 European nations, and so the God of heaven will set up his kingdom now. What have I done there? I have, I've put a trick in here. Between Rome and the peat, partly iron and partly clay, I stuck in 20 centuries. Right? How much space was there between Babylon and Medo-Persia? None. Okay, let's try it again. Medo-Persia and Greece. The last kings of Persia should have known that Alexander was going to do a number on them, right? How many centuries between the Greeks and the Roman Republic taking over the Greek world? No space. And by the time you get to the Fourth Empire, Christ has come into the world, right? Daniel 2 doesn't have any gap. But when I do that, and I use Daniel 2 as proof that Christ is soon to come, I'm making mincemeat, because the person who hears me doesn't know, hey, there's a trick in there. You just put a 20th century gap in where the prophecy doesn't mention any such gap. Okay? All right. We're about to find out that the 7 heads are something else. Something much larger than just the city of Rome, or even the Roman Empire as a whole. Okay, you with me? All right. Here's the time to stop me if you have a question, Reggie. There are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. 1 is, so what period am I in?
5.
No. You blew that.
6. I can't count.
Yes. I don't know if all of you heard that. Ray said 5. Then he corrected himself. 5 have fallen and 1 is. So we're in number 6. Ray just said he can't count. Well.
I can't read either.
Oh, he can't read either. Okay. 1 is, the other has not yet come. That's number 7. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. Okay. So now I've got it. Which one has the deadly wound?
Or 6.
The 6th one.
Now there's another catch here that you need to know about. Revelation follows Daniel in making the founding king stand for the whole kingdom as long as it lasts. This is why we get this slipperiness in Daniel, that the same word is translated king in one verse and kingdoms in another. All right. This is something of an ancient commonplace. Judah was always the house of David. Well, Judah stood for over 400 years, close to 500 years, and David didn't last very long, right? But it was the house of David. We even find in things like the Moabite stone or the inscription from Dan, the house of David. David's gone, folks. He has been for a long time. No, that's not how it works. All these kings in David's line, they were in David, right?
Yeah.
They came from his loins, it says. All right, so David hasn't left us. The Psalms of David. By the rivers of Babylon we wept. Well, David didn't weep by the rivers of Babylon. That's 4 centuries later. But it was called the Psalms of David. And when you added Psalms to the collection, what was the collection still called? The Psalms of David. Didn't matter that David was long dead. The Law of Moses. We've got things in there that aren't about desert life. They're about village life. And later they're about monarchical life. This isn't the time of Moses. Moses wrote certain things. Then the law is expanded as God spoke to the successors of Moses over the following centuries. We got the same thing when we see the wisdom of Solomon. There's stuff in Proverbs that Solomon knew nothing about. In Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar was told, you are the head of gold. You is singular. When Daniel said that, I guarantee you, he pointed at the king. I absolutely guarantee it. When we talk to Daniel later, he'll say, yeah, John was right. Right? You are the head of gold. Well, was the head of gold Babylon or was it Nebuchadnezzar?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes. Well, Cyrus. Oh, the kings from the east. Babylon's going to fall to the kings of the east. Who were they? Cyrus and Darius. They're named in Daniel. It's not hard to figure out. All right. Alexander is pointed out as the Great Horn. Right. Caesar stands for Rome. In fact, since Daniel is written partly in Aramaic, it's interesting that when Daniel speaks of the God of heaven setting up a kingdom, in the days of those kings, he's using the same term. In fact, Malku, with only one L, kingdom, refers to the reign of a king. Okay, wait now. The word is king. But it also refers to the reign of the king, how long he reigned. He reigned 32 years. Same word. Or the area over which he reigned. He reigned from Dan to Beersheba. That's the area he reigned. Oh, well, that's kind of the kingdom, isn't it? Okay, which is where we get all of these things is how we happen to get the translation kingdom and king, depending on the context. Got it?
Yeah.
Revelation often uses the turn of a phrase that might be found in Aramaic or Hebrew. All right, this is important. Now here's a problem in interpreting Revelation. This is this weird language, this unusual language in which Revelation is written. It doesn't even look like other New Testament books that occasionally you can see some Aramaic behind it. Some scholars will tell you, oh, it looks to me like the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, was written in Aramaic and then translated into Greek, right? And you think, well, I'll look at some plays where there's a play on words and I'll figure this out. Jesus said to Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. Okay, so now there's a play on the word rock. So let me look and see whether that's Greek or Aramaic. Shucks. It turns out that Greek and Aramaic have the same word. That doesn't help me at all. All right? All right. When you look at contemporary Arabic language and how Hebrew was being used at the time Revelation was written at the end of the century, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes, yeah, you can see a relationship to Aramaic. Other times, it doesn't make any sense at all. Well, the scholar is doing a very logical thing. He's saying, I think this guy is thinking in Aramaic, but he's writing Greek. And that explains some of the things that really are illusions, but I'm not catching them. Okay?
So you just include the original language and let other people figure it out.
Well, here's what happened. Recent studies show that he doesn't use later Aramaic or Hebrew in writing Revelation. It uses the language and idiom of the two biblical languages as they are used in the Old Testament. Well, yeah, but that Daniel is 500 years before Christ. Languages change in 500 years. Right? So, I see. Scholarship is missing it because what? Once again, you're looking in the wrong place. Right? If you want to figure out all these oddities, not all of them are this reason. Randy would be the first to tell you, no, some of them have nothing to do with that. However, in some cases, it's, and why would that best work for the 7 assemblies? Well, because they would recognize this is not the Aramaic we speak. He's referencing what? He's referencing a passage in Isaiah or something, right? They would know it. Oh yeah, you're saying it in Greek, but that's a passage from Isaiah 40, right? They would understand what was being said. All right. And again, while Revelation was written for us, it was not written to us. Okay. All right, so here, I've taken the steps. Okay, follow me on the steps. They are also 7 kings. Revelation 17:10, the first half of the verse. But let's dress that up with the idiom Revelation actually uses. There are also 7 founding kings. I'm getting better. Okay, but that's not the complete idea. They are also the reigns of 7 founding kings. I'm getting close. One more and we'll be there. They are also the area, the kingdoms, of which 7 founding kings whose reigns last the whole period of each kingdom, even long after the founding king dies. Got it? Now I know how we get from king to kingdom. Now we're speaking the language in the way that Revelation actually speaks it. Thus, they are 7 founding kings or kingdoms. Here's an ironic note. The first hearers of Revelation would know this, right? That's one of the reasons that Revelation is so tricky. Right? Do you remember those 4 things you need to know something about at the beginning? Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to say, there are also 7 kings or kingdoms. Well, because it's the kings and the kingdoms are, the founding king and the kingdom is interchangeable. 5 of whom have fallen. 1 is, that's number 6. The other hasn't come, number 7. When he does come, he must remain only a little while. So now we have 2 new pieces of information to put together. One is that kings can also be rendered kingdoms, because the founding king and his reign over that area, as long as that entity lasts, is interchangeable. The other is that we're not talking about contemporaneous kings or kingdoms. This isn't a whole bunch of kings that ruled at the same time. They are definitely consecutive, a sequence, one after another, no gap between. And we know where to begin the sequence, right? I had one historicist fellow who said, oh, we have to begin with Assyria. Well, why would you begin with Assyria? Well, it preceded Babylon. That's not the point. Why do you want to begin with Assyria? So that he could end up in the Middle Ages with the papacy. Oh, I get it. You want the papacy to be the bad guy, and you'll manipulate Revelation to make it say that. No, no. This is built on Daniel 7. We're starting, and Daniel 2. We're starting with Babylon. Babylon was the destroyer of the temple, right? They are consecutive, a sequence, one after another, no gap between. And we know where to begin. We begin with Babylon, of course. And now we know for sure where the mortal wound is to be placed. Okay, listen carefully here. We've come to a slide where there are some things written all in caps. If you are looking at it and you aren't colorblind, you'll note that they are all in purple. Not all of us can see whether that's the same color or not. Of the beast we read, the beast was, is not, and is about to rise, 17:8. The is not is obviously when the mortal wound is in existence. And which head is that?
The 6th head.
That's 6. That is, since this is an imperial beast, the deadly wound would be a period of time when there was no great empire controlling and persecuting God's people. Now compare that to the head sequence. It says the beast is not, second line. Okay. But of the heads, it says 5 have fallen, 1 is, so that has to be what? The 6th again. The beast is not, well, the 6th head is. Okay. Within a couple of verses of each other, we have is not and is. And it's not confusing at all if you think about it. 5 have fallen, 1 is, these are the heads. The other's not yet come, got it. The 6th head is, and is the one with the mortal wound. Therefore, during that period, the imperial beast is not. I can understand it. Now I know where to start and compare actual history to see if and how this worked out. I know to start with Babylon and go from there. I've known that ever since chapter 13, when the beast consisted of the 4 wild beasts of Daniel 7, starting with Babylon. Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Okay. So, now, since 5 have fallen, I've got to figure out about number 5. All right? Got to figure out number 5 now. So let me count. I'm looking for 5 that have already fallen in Revelation 17. Now remember, this isn't John's time, right? John says that when he's looking at it, 5 have fallen, 1 is. He's in the 6th period, right? So by the time he's viewing, 5 have fallen, so there's got to be a 5th one that's already gone. Are you with me? 5. So I got Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, the Roman Empire. 5, the area ruled by Rome was reinvigorated by the imposition of an alleged Holy and Roman Empire that held Christian Europe together for almost exactly 1,000 years. Europe was called Christ's seamless robe. Well, what does that mean? Well, when the Muslims attacked southeastern Europe and Spain, southern Spain, and started trying to gobble up pieces of Europe, what did the emperor and the pope say? We've got to rally around together. Why? Christ's robe is seamless. We can't have parts of Europe cut off and go to these other religions, right? So that was the Holy Roman Empire, held Christian Europe together, Christ's seamless robe. The Holy Roman Empire was not ruled by the papacy. This is what we hear from the late historicists. We hear pagan Rome and papal Rome. Keep going the wrong way. Pagan Rome and papal Rome. There was no such thing as papal Rome. Some popes at times did vie with the emperor for superior power and actually got it. That was temporary. Now you know about the Emperor Henry waiting in the snow in the Palace of Canossa where the Pope was visiting, right? It was during a blizzard. The Pope did not like the things that he was doing, that the Emperor was messing in things to do with the church, and so he excommunicated him, so the king had no power. He had to go to Canossa, and he waited outside at the gates for 3 days in bare feet, in a blizzard, wearing only a hair shirt, waiting for the Pope to allow him entry and to give him absolution. You heard of that story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Did you ever hear of a radio guide who used to say the rest of the story? What was his name?
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey. He made that phrase famous. Now the rest of the story. Well, let me borrow a page from Paul Harvey. This same Pope ensconced in Rome, his troubles with Henry continued. He excommunicated him again. Henry sent his armies to Rome. Now the Normans, who were ensconced in Sicily, came to protect Rome from Henry's troops. They had a big fight. But the Normans rampaged the city, sacked it, raped people, and so forth. The Roman citizens were so angry with the people who were protecting the Pope that guess what they did? They told him, out. Out now or we kill you. So he died in exile. Oh, well, wait a minute, you didn't tell me that part. That's because it doesn't play into your myth that there was a papal Rome that the popes reigned in. There were occasional popes who tried to play the role of both pope and emperor, and it didn't end well when that happened. All right. Now, the last sentence here. In 1809, Napoleon killed the Holy Roman Empire. He demolished the Holy Roman Empire. Charlemagne the Great, a Frenchman, had founded the Holy Roman Empire, and now another Frenchman killed it. He, 1809, killed the Holy Roman Empire in order to rule all Europe and also gain control over its colonies and spheres of influence. He had this idea. I'll conquer all of Europe. I'll conquer Britain and I will get the British colonies. France has its colonies. I will make sure that we get control of those. I will get control of Portugal and we'll own Brazil. Right? You see what his idea was? He had a pretty good idea that if he succeeded, he could create a world empire. But what head are we in?
The sixth.
Yes, and the problem is that in the sixth period,
Empire's dead.
the beast is not. Lots of people tried this. There for a minute, the British Empire thought they were going to, well, but you know what? They had, the sun never sets on the British Empire. But it never could gain control, right? Never got control of Europe. No, never happened. That was the key part. It's all one thing to get control of India, right? And Ceylon, and you get nice tea, right? You get fine china and nice tea, right? But you don't have Europe. You're not going to conquer the French, and you're not going to conquer the Swedes, and so forth. All right. Okay. Actually, with the rise of the United States and the idea of a constitutional republic, a new concept of anti-empire was rising. Napoleon said bitterly from his exile in Elba, "They expected me to be another Washington." Well, you would have done better if you had been another Washington. In Revelation 7, nobody ever thought of exiling George Washington, right?
Yeah. They wanted to make him the emperor.
Yeah, that's right. They wanted to make him the emperor. That's right, Ray. There were people in the 18th century who had seen and met King George III, who, as you know, was mentally disabled. He was mentally ill. And had also met King Louis, who was a fat little man who was undecided somewhat in his rule, and he needed to be decisive, and he lost his head as a result. And people who had seen all three said what? Only one looks like and comports himself as a king. Who? Washington. Right? A man came up and clapped George Washington on the back and grabbed his arm. Right? everybody stopped. It's different, right? What? No, 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 no. You don't do that. You don't touch Mr. Washington, right?
He is a general, after all.
And he became the president. Why do we call the president Mr. President? Right? Because George Washington said, no, we're not going to call him His Highness the President. Right? Said no. What is a gentleman called? A gentleman is called Mr. You will address me as Mr. President. And we do that to this day. All right. In Revelation 17, we're looking at the 6th imperial period. As usual with number 6, the imperial ideal has collapsed. That's 6. It's bad for being an imperial power. While many undertook to rule the world, such attempts eventually met with the horrors of world wars. Why? Because Germany wanted something that Britain had. Right? And if you want it bad enough, you'll go to war to get it. In Revelation 17, we see the beginning of the 6th period, the period of the deadly wound. The chapter then assures us that the final world state is coming soon, only to stay for a very short time. But the prophecy makes clear that eventually a true world state, a true global empire, would arise under the leadership of the Antichrist and last only briefly. Clear? Yeah. All right, so here, I've seen graphs and graphs and graphs, and you see that I occasionally make a graph, but most of the time try to keep them simple, because you see these things, everything is going everywhere on the page, and you don't know what's going on. That's because the guy who made it doesn't know what's going on. So let's graph it. Graphs can be useful. Convoluted graphs I've been exposed to, and I've seen lots of them, often based on confusion, make things worse. Here goes. A period when the beast is not, but the head is. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. And what about the religions? What's bad about the religions that is so abomination thing, right? Pagan thing. And by the way, for those who hate Catholicism and want the whore of Babylon to be Catholicism, notice under number 5. What's the religion? Catholicism, which is what you do, what you get when you take Christianity and add the pagan Roman religion into it. Right?
Uh-huh.
It's Catholic. Well, yes, it was the universal religion. It was not, there were little sects here and there, but it was the great universal religion. It was Catholic. And it was Roman, right? We've got to remember that. It was Roman paganism mixed with the gospel, and what you get is the disaster called Catholicism. So, if you really, 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 really need the whore of Babylon to be Catholicism, then you have to decide what 7th of her you want to be Catholicism. She's all of these, right? All right. The world state, Antichrist, notice Christianity is not what is the end product. She's the mother of earth's abominations. It says the Antichrist will sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. It says in Daniel 11 that he will not honor the God of his fathers, but only himself. Okay? So what's going to happen is this. This is a world religion because it's a world empire. How many religions will there be?
1.
2.
I'm sorry, yeah, you're correct. What am I thinking?
Yeah. But you answered as far as the empire's religion, will there be Shintoism and Buddhism and Islam and Christianity and da-da-da-da-da-da? No, she's the mother of abominations, right? She has taken from all of these and will make a wonderful new. Will it still be Christianity? Of course. Christ will appear here and there, resembling the description given in Revelation 1. Right? We keep making a point that Christ appears in the heavens, never comes down to earth, because Jesus made that a big deal, because that's the thing that will distinguish that this guy over here that 100,000 people saw all at once, yeah, but that's not Christ. That's not a description. Splendor, great splendor, awesome, yeah, that's not Christ. All right. What does Satan always turn himself into? A messenger of light. In the graph on the previous slide, the first column represents the 7 imperial periods. The 6th is still an imperial period, with folks trying and failing to create a world state, but that is coming. In the second column, we note who was the founding king. If you wanted a convenient figure to represent the change that came during the deadly wound, you could put in George Washington. That's a good example. The third column is where the danger lies. All the worst elements of the Babylonian pagan evolutionary concepts passed down from one age and empire to the next. Babylon, Greece, Persia, Rome, all contributed to the Christianity that we know as Roman Catholicism. That's the 5th period. To that partial extent, the reformers recognized that the whore of Babylon was somehow related to Revelation's symbol of Babylon. Roman Catholicism was a perfect fit, but the issue was much bigger and longer lasting than the reformers understood. Well, here's a woodcut that came from Germany at the time of the Reformation. Okay. Now the fun thing here is she's not wearing any purple, and she doesn't have nearly enough jewelry. Gold and pearls and stuff weren't big in Germany. Okay. So we've got to understand who this was made for. Notice they're bowing, and she's wearing all scarlet. Okay. But the thing that's really important is what's on her head.
Crown.
What crown?
It's the papal crown.
It's the triple tiara of the Pope. She's wearing the papal crown. Because who did the reformers say the woman was? The Roman Church. Yeah. Okay. There's an idea that stuck, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a fun sentence. And as for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7 and goes to destruction. Did you catch that?
Yep. Clear as mud.
Yeah, clear as mud. As for the beast that was and is not, I know who that is. That's the imperial
We
beast.
know who that is.
It is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7. What are the 7?
Heads.
7 heads.
Yep.
I know when the 6th head is wounded, the beast is dead. How many symbols do I need to think of here all at once? It's telling me that the beast is an 8th symbol, but it belongs to the 7. Of course it does. We've got 8 things here. 7 heads and a beast. Okay? The beast represents the whole idea of a single great imperial power. The heads represent the phases of that. And this simply says, the beast that was and is not is an 8th symbol, but it belongs to the 7 head symbols, and it goes to destruction.
The key is that this sentence is, as you pointed out, it's talking about the beast, not the heads, just the beast. It's say its body. You might
Yes,
say.
its body, yes.
The beast is not. It is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7th.
Right. At first glance, you may look at this statement and wonder, what on earth is it talking about?
Right.
Actually, it is straightforward, and actually, It says what it means, right? Yeah, you just have to get into the spirit of the thing to say, oh, okay, that's not so bad. The beast that was in the knot is obviously the imperial beast. It is not because the chapter takes place in the 6th period, when the beast has received a deadly wound. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is soon to come. But the imperial beast should be counted as an 8th symbol, along with the 7 heads. The beast itself is about the imperial powers that Satan uses to destroy God's people. The consecutive heads are the 7 imperial periods, including the period when no single power controls God's people. That's now. That is now. I'm talking about by now, I'm talking about today, this year, the year we're living in, the day we're living in, that's now. But now isn't going to last much longer. Okay. In the imperial beast's body double, the great red dragon, the crowns were on the heads. Satan is working through those imperial periods. Right? It's emphasizing the 7 imperial periods, and there's a crown on the head of the 6th head. Why? Satan's still working through political powers. He just doesn't have what he wants. Right? Roll with the budgets. Do control what you can. Right? If you're Germany, try to use Nazism. If you're in China, try to use communism. Whatever works. Right? All right. The emphasis is on all the 7 imperial periods through which Satan is working. Again, the dragon is Satan, but Satan working through these successive imperial powers. That's how we see him in chapter 7. That's why if the imperial beast has 7 heads and 10 horns, then what? Then Satan's going to have 7 heads and 10 horns. In the case of the imperial beast here in chapter 17, the emphasis is on the head, on the end, right? We haven't gotten to the end of the chapter. What was this supposed to be about? What was this chapter supposed to be about?
What happens to
He says, the angel says to John, I'll show you the judgment on the great whore.
the, yeah,
That's supposedly what this chapter is about. Well, we're down a lot of verses down into it, but what?
like that.
I'm still waiting. Right? It's only in the last 3 verses that you get to the point. Well, because you couldn't understand what was being said at the last 3 verses unless you understood this stuff. How did we get there? Right? In the case of the imperial beast here in chapter 17, the emphasis is on the end. So far, the chapter hasn't really been about what the angel said it was going to be about. It was going to be about the judgment on the great whore. So far, she's very much in control. Actually, what happens in this chapter is that in order to understand how the judgment on the great whore comes about, you have to know the background that leads up to it. And that's what we've been looking at so far. Okay? You all with me? Everybody out there with me? In YouTube land?
Raise your hand if you're not.
Oh, there's 1 or 2. You got these slides if you want them. You can review them. They really do make sense. A light bulb will go on over your head if you keep reviewing them. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings or kingdoms who have not yet received royal power. Oh, this is another image. 10 kings or kingdoms. Now remember, we're writing to the people in Revelation. They had to receive authority as the kings or kingdoms for 1 hour together with the beast. They are kingdoms that haven't received royal power. So they don't exist as kingdoms yet. Okay? So the people in Roman Asia are told, these 10 horns are 10 kingdoms. They don't exist yet. Okay? And that tells me something really important about this chapter. This chapter is a turning point. I'm sitting in Asia waiting for Domitian to behead me. This is not comfortable. Right? But I am given to understand that how many empires do we have before Christ comes? I've read Daniel. I know. How many are there?
4.
4. Which one am I in?
We're in the end of the 4th one.
We're in the end of the 4th period. Christ should be coming at any time, right? But now, I have just been told something rather shocking. What have I just been told? And that also explains to me why there's so much explanation in chapter 17.
There will be 7.
Oh, no. Yes, you're in the 4th. And the way this is going to work out is there are 7. We're not there yet. In fact, these 10 horns haven't even come into existence as kingdoms yet. Oh, one of the big issues, listen carefully, one of the big issues was, why has Christ not come? If I didn't have that question before, I certainly would have had it when Jerusalem was destroyed. Because when I read about the end of the world, what does Jesus tell me is it? It's the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay? All right. And now I know, oh, wait a minute. Rome is the new Babylon. Right? Rome is the new Babylon. Rome did something that Babylon did. What did it do?
Persecute God's people.
No. Before we ever got to that. What big thing makes Rome parallel to Babylon?
Destroy the temple.
It came and it destroyed the kingdom of God. It destroyed the holy city. It destroyed the temple. Now all the way through, I see, like in Jeremiah and Ezekiel stuff, that God is going to take vengeance on Babylon for his temple. That's my Bible. So what do I know?
God's going to take vengeance on Rome for his temple.
God will take vengeance on Rome for his temple, as you said. That's what we're waiting for. Okay? Well, now I'm not so sure if we're called upon to sacrifice our lives, we will. That's the whole theme here. But am I sure that that's going to happen? Well, no, not really sure. Maybe some of us aren't going to be beheaded. In fact, when the time came for Domitian to do that, who was dead? Domitian was dead. Oh, there's still plenty of persecution left in the Roman Empire before many more martyrs, right? All right. As for the 10 horns that I'm not sure that you could properly understand what this chapter would have done to the 7 assemblies' understanding. Right? Now, this might involve a whole lot of time or very little time. After all, the Babylonian Empire only lasted from 70 years. Right? Nebuchadnezzar became emperor in 605. And in 535, the last emperor was killed. 70 years. Okay? And Jeremiah says, you're going to serve the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, for 7 years. Well, Nebuchadnezzar was long dead before that. Yeah, but that's the way they talk, because who's still reigning if he dies? He founded the kingdom. Whose reign is this? This is Nebuchadnezzar's reign. All right? So, they say, okay, the Caesars are still around, right? Who was the first Caesar? Well, Julius Caesar was the first Caesar. That was his family name. Most historians will tell you, well, the Roman Empire didn't begin until Augustus. Augustus was Caesar's grandnephew and his adopted son, right? He wanted to be the emperor, but they killed him. He would have been if it hadn't been. They killed him so he wouldn't become emperor. But then his grandnephew survived not one but two triumvirates to be the only man left standing. And so what? He's now Caesar Augustus. Right? Julius Caesar gave his name to the emperors because it was his idea that Rome must be an empire. You can't run the world with 600 people in your Senate as a committee of 600, right? There's a saying that if Moses had been a committee, Israel would still be getting ready to leave Egypt, right? Okay. So, we understand that Rome now is in a different situation. Rome is number 4 of 7. Okay. All right. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings or kingdoms who have not yet received royal power, and they could understand this. Why? This is the 7th period, and where are we? We're in the 4th period. But they are to receive authority as kings or kingdoms, because if you get a king, you don't have a king without a kingdom, right? And you don't have a kingdom without a king, for 1 hour. That's a very short time, together with the imperial beast. They are of one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. Oh, now this is interesting. This is something that doesn't have to do with the time of Revelation. This is all about the end. So now we should be looking around and saying, oh, wait a minute. This is making specific reference to our time. At last the angel turned his attention to the 10 horns. They are end-time symbols, which is why the horns are... Oh, Ray. The sentence goes amok. It goes down to an alley and crashes, which is why the crowns are now on them. Make a note, Ray. Okay. To emphasize the final events. Right? The crowns are on the horns.
Yeah.
The horns are the very last thing in this chapter. Our predecessor listeners to the Revelation in Roman Asia would probably have associated these with the ongoing struggle that began early in the 1st century to protect the then current empire from its marauding tribes of the north. Yeah, I know who these 10 kingdoms who hadn't become kingdoms yet were. I got it. They were already in existence at the time Revelation was written. But they weren't 10 great kingdoms. These kingdoms are going to be important, right? It says they give their collective power to the beast, and that's what makes the beast totally in control. This is a message I need to send as quickly as possible to the Premier of Russia. He needs to know this because it's important that he know this, right? Already in the time of Augustus Caesar, there was a classic mistake in dealing with the Germanic tribes that was still a current topic at the end of the century. It's talked about in the 12 Caesars by Suetonius. The 12 Caesars, but that was written in 121, 26 years after Revelation. And he spends a lot of time on this. It happened to Augustus, and it just about drove him nuts. The event was only part of the ongoing struggle to secure the northern border of Rome, a struggle that Rome eventually lost. The reason that Tiberius succeeded Augustus was, even though Augustus hated Tiberius, despised him and made fun of him in public, Tiberius was a general, and he had prevented the sack of Rome by stopping the Germanic tribes. This will help remind us of the alleged 10. Now notice I got 10 in quotes. 10 Germanic tribes. There weren't 10, and they weren't all Germanic. That's just a kind of a name given to the tribes of the north, right? Some of them, like the Huns, weren't even involved in this, but they were attacking Rome from the north. There probably should be more than 10 listed, and they're not all Germanic. But that wasn't an exact science. In the time and it was very changeable as you went along. In the time of Revelation's arrival, the Germanic tribes, generalization, most definitely had not succeeded to independent royal power. The Germanic tribes were not a problem for the interior province of Asia. They weren't threatened.
Or North America, for that matter.
Yes, or North America. But doubtless, as Romans, the folks in Asia would know about the problem. In fact, between 86 AD and AD 88, Domitian himself was involved in leading his troops against the Dacians on Rome's northern border. That he succeeded. That held them off briefly, right? 88, that's 7 years before Revelation. He was fighting in the north. That held them off briefly, but they later won the struggle with Rome. 7 heads and 10 horns. The 10 horns of the Germanic tribes did eventually coalesce and become the leading nations of modern Europe. These today are the leading nations of what we call NATO. They form a key part of what is today an essential part of what George Washington called the American Empire. Now, it was common among the founders to talk about the American Empire. They didn't mean about it what we would mean, because what they were looking at is they had the whole of North America. They assumed they would take over Canada. That was an assumption, just a matter of time. And when we get out there to the mid-continent, all down the Mississippi, we're going to find those French forts. But Washington had fought in the French and Indian War against those forts. They were all believed that what? Oh, once we get ourselves organized and organize armies and navies, what? We'll roll over them without a hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then who knows what's out there, right? It wasn't until the third president said, well, Napoleon needs money. He's willing to sell these at a bargain basement price. We've got money. Let's give him what he wants. And we've got it, right? Okay, so fine. Jefferson bought the Louisiana Purchase, which went all the way to the northwest. And now what did he say? Well, we better do something. What? We better find out what's there. What did we just buy? If we're going to develop it, we need to know something about what it is, right? But they felt that with a giant ocean between them and Europe, and with the European nations constantly fighting each other, that it was only a matter of time that if the United States built an army, Washington, a navy, Adams, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, right away, first two presidents. We have to have an army, right? Founded West Point. We have to have a navy, right? Right down here, down the street, we have the Naval Oaks, right? You notice how these trees around here, these oak trees, bend this way and that? Perfect. You don't have to bend them to make a base for a ship, right? Great ancient pines for masts, right? The first thing that made this important was, got to build a navy. Well, there's a great place down there. We just bought Florida. There's a great place down there where we can get all the stuff to do this. It's not by accident. This is a what? The big Navy base, right? Well, you get a base big enough and the water to practice on, and if you want to get planes, what? We'll do that too. All right. So the Americans didn't think they were going to go out and conquer the world. That wasn't the idea of the fathers. The founding fathers thought, no, we'll conquer what? We'll conquer North America. And we'll be behind a great fortress wall of a vast ocean. And Britain may have a great navy, but wait till you see ours. Right? And then, as if to spit in their face, this second president, John Adams, said, I've had enough of these Barbary Mohammedans impressing American seamen. We will tell these Mohammedan men what we're made of, right? And he sent the American Navy to North Africa to attack the Barbary pirates. They weren't pirates, they were, it was a country, right? Right? Well, of course, if you got propaganda, you're going to have war, you got a propaganda, right? And what happened? They mimicked the British Navy. The British Navy didn't just have sailors on board. They had armed troops. And these armed troops were called Marines. They weren't there as mariners, right? They were an army that was trained to go to where you need to go on our Navy and disembark and make war, right? So what does the Marine hymn say?
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Yeah, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, right? And of course, John Adams was perfectly willing to say, what none of you European powers, including you French and especially including you British, what you never could do, we did just like that. Right? All right. So they didn't mean what we mean by the American Empire. When we say the American Empire, what are we talking about? The American Empire and all its related countries at the moment against the Chinese Empire and all its related countries. Two great powers, like the template in Revelation, in Daniel 11. All right. Today, these are the leading nations of what we call NATO. They form a key part, what is an essential part, of what George Washington called the American Empire. Oh, it would have been a surprise in the time of the founders to say, you know France, that, you know Britain, you know Scandinavia, right? You know these great European powers? They're going to be the key of your empire. What? What? They are our enemy. They're the people we're most afraid of. Nope. That's how it's going to turn out. Right? You will rescue them from destruction, from their own self-destruction more than once. Right? How would that have gone down for our founders? I don't think so. Yeah. Little did the founders know what would become of the American experiment. Beginning with the appearance of a lamb, it goes on to speak like a dragon. Right now, as in the template of Daniel 11, it is vying for power over the earth with quite a different empire, one that does not fit the prophecy's identifiers. But at a key time in the near future, these nations will help bring about the American imperial rule over all of the globalist world state. Right? Well, we've already seen the beginning. Russia knows. The premier of Russia isn't confused. Who's he fighting? He's fighting what used to be part of the Russian Empire. And he wants it back. But he can't get it back. Why?
Because the Western nations won't let him. They are opposing him.
Did you know that the Prince of Wales went to Poland last night?
I did.
What does that tell you?
This is getting very serious.
He's not there just as a traveler. His father's the king of all the British realm and the whole of the British Commonwealth. And he's the next king, right? And what's his presence in Poland, which shares a border with Russia, telling us? Oh,
is very important.
we know. We know.
And they're next on the list.
Yeah, we know what's what. Well, you know what the Premier of Russia said? I'm not signing another SALT treaty. That's between us and the United States. And my predecessors signed it. But I would like to know just exactly how much nuclear power France has. It keeps saying it's minimal. Really? Britain won't talk about it. Right? Israel has nothing to say. Saudi Arabia has nothing to mention. What's he saying? What about Japan? Right? What he's saying is, you want me to sign a nuclear treaty with just the United States, without reference to any part of the American empire, except the United States. Really? I'm not going to do that. Okay? And neither will his successors. He's a sick man. Neither will his successors. All right? These are of one mind. This is the 10. This is after they have become royal powers. They are 10 powerful nations that come to the aid of the imperial beast and bring it back to life. Okay? These are of one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. Right? The folks to whom Revelation was written just had to accept this on faith. They had no reason to doubt it. They certainly understood what was being said, but they couldn't attach any names to this.
Not like we can.
They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them, for he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. We have yet to replay the final battle. We only saw the frog demon princes gathering the powers of earth to Armageddon. We, of course, expected that the Lamb would conquer. As stated here, he's the Lord of lords and Kings of kings. He's God. You can't beat him. That was the original basis for the great controversy. Few readers or commentators note that the actual Armageddon battle is described in Revelation further ahead. For now, we know the 10 nations will play a crucial role in supporting the beast in recreating a final, world-embracing empire with its new deceptive religion. I can't emphasize that enough. We'll read a couple of passages about this here in the Bible in a minute. To fight to the death. Yeah, we shouldn't stop unless we do that. And he said to me, the waters that you saw, where the prostitute is seated, are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. You know, that's the clash of the roaring sea is a great image for how empires rise, right? The whore is riding the beast, and she was said to be sitting on the waters, right? Using its religious powers to push the various peoples of earth to do her bidding. We have seen that the picture of the Antichrist is one of a complete mixing of political power with the corrupt religion that has gathered all the worst elements of the prior false religions to push people into a new corporate religion which will incorporate every other world religion into a new Christianity. They'll all name the name of Christ, right? It won't be the Christianity of Christ, but it'll be a great imitation, right? The clash of roaring waters was the origin of the beast in the first place. Remember, when was Revelation getting what time of year? This is the Day of Atonement. What time of the year is that? Yeah, September, October. That's when the great storms occur, right? So far, with all this necessary background, we still haven't seen anything like a judgment on the whore. We're still waiting. But the world state's religion and its religious leaders have led the world into a trap. As I said earlier, eventually it will dawn on the surviving population that the Antichrist and his religion have been a deceptive trap, one that cannot and will not save them. Things are getting worse, they're not getting better. A certain level of rage and disappointment will sweep over the masses when they come to the realization that their situation is hopeless, that they have been deceived, and God is going to destroy them. Right? When that collapse comes, it will be a tidal wave of changed opinions. Many of the religious leaders most prominent in pushing the deception will meet a violent end. Clear? And the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. Do you understand where this hate comes from? She's the one who tells them that God will give them the power to succeed. And she doesn't have God's power after all. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. The punishment for prostitution in the law is death by fire. It is the most severe punishment possible. Here in symbol, the fate of the false religion, that, like its predecessors, were all a mix of political and religious power, will be swift and terrible. The demons must then salvage what they have left when their deceptive religion collapses. They must still fire the people up with the hope that if they get rid of the righteous remnant, God will have no further interest in the tiny earth and its inhabitants. The imposition of a universal death decree is one of the last acts in the drama. For God put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. I need not remind you that this is not the way God has handled sin in the past. He has placed check on sin. But here what? He says, oh no, you've made your choice, and I am here to guarantee that you get your choice and anything that results from it. Right? This reminds us of God himself giving the wicked a strong delusion to make them believe what is false, because they did not love the truth and so be saved, as Paul told the Thessalonians. Let's remember that the whole awful scenario that occupies the last 7 years of Earth's history is letting sin take its course without applying the brakes along the way. Choices are made, and God ensures that they are carried out. This is the opposite of any attempt to bring the effect of sin under control. Every nation handing over its power to the imperial beast is the fulfillment of God's purpose that every nation and individual be free to exercise their bad choices and receive the inevitable result. By the end, much of what had been the human race is already dead. Yeah, they see, they realize. And you know what's happened to that billion people? What? That's going to happen to us. And you told us, da-da. And the woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. Well, we already figured out. 7 heads, 7 hills, right? It's Rome. But Rome is always Babylon. The city is metaphorically always and ever Babylon. In history, we know the successive capitals of Shushan, Alexandria, the 4 cities of the divided Greek world, Rome, then Rome, its various European capitals, then a gap with no great empire and control of the world, and finally, what we can simply label the Northeast Corridor, with understanding what that means. Whatever and wherever they are or were, they are all Babylon. The Christians of Roman Asia certainly knew that their Babylon was Rome. It was a real place, and so is our Babylon. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Right? Take a look at what Paul told the Thessalonians, right? He will come, the Antichrist will come and sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. In the end of Daniel 11, you'll see that he does not honor God, the gods of his fathers, nor any other god but himself, right? And here we see the woman is the mother of earth's abominations, right? She can create a world religion. You can't have a unified world with people just liking each other's religions, right? I'm going to say something again. Sameness, difference. Sameness, difference. Which way does the human mind go? When faced the opposite, sameness and difference, what? The human mind tends to embrace sameness and annihilate difference. See? That's the rule. Thank you, Eli Siegel. All right, so the thing is that isn't going to work. You can't have a world under your control where everybody's religion is fighting everybody else's religion, right? First, unite Christianity. And, well, you got Protestantism, Catholicism. Why spiritualism? Because, you know, the Christian religion teaches that the dead are immediately judged, right? And most people are basically good, the Christian religion says, and have been won by Christ. They're all in heaven, right? So they can talk to us. They can tell us what heaven's like, right? Well, that's not hard. Where did the demons come from? They can tell us a lot about the universe. Well, what? They know all about that. Yeah. They don't need to make anything up, right? They can just present what's actually there in a false context, right? Okay. And then there's the ufology people and all the other forms of religion, right? We're just people from the nearby planets that God sent us here to help you to not destroy yourselves because that would affect us, and so forth, right? It's all what now appears to be random events will obviously become a unified whole.
Yeah, I was reading just recently that there's people believe that there is a intelligent group of beings that are trying to contact us, and this is a common belief right now.
Well, you know, it's not by accident that the government is saying, well, that may be, right? Right. First of all, it was all denial. That stuff isn't happening. That's for nuts and kooks. And now they're saying, well, no, our Navy pilots are not nuts and kooks, right? You're stuck with that. You can't say that about Navy pilots, right? So now you're stuck, especially now you got, some people from the Air Force speaking up and saying, yeah, well, this isn't the Navy who just sees these, right? Right? We see them too. Okay. So, did I say somewhere in here that this is now, but now isn't going to last?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right, so this is probably a turning point study for the folks in Revelation, and a turning point study if you're studying it, so you're going to have a chance to probably look at this more than once. You might just need to hear it more than once to make sense of it. This is a big deal, right? You guys are number 4. It's the people over here, number 7, that are going to see this. That's why Revelation is, that's why we're studying it. It's now, right? All right, so we say what to our people? As we say goodbye, we say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace.